Hello, everybody. It is April 14th. It is quite a bit later in the semester than I thought we'd ever be going with these video classes. Um, let's call this Thoughts and Words from the Road number 4. And just a second, I got to set my timer so I don't go over time. That's my danger. Going under time is not the problem. Going over time is my challenge. So I'll make sure I don't keep you here for 3 hours. 3 hours you could watch Avatar, right? Be a lot better than this. Anyhow, good to see you guys. I'm Jason Ham, and this is going to be a combination lesson, a little bit from the road. I have some remaining videos to conclude the adventure of the Chun'an 200 and 300. That trip I took, gosh, that was like that was like 3.5 weeks ago. Seems like ages ago. I've done a few things since then. Some pretty hard rides, very, very hard rides. Rides that I did not whip my smartphone out on and begin filming. They were very tight rides as far as time constraints are concerned. There was a couple of rainy rides, very windy rides, all night, sleep deprivation. I'll talk to you a little bit about those and try to catch up. So apologies for everything kind of being mixed up with time, but I think you'll find that if you watch the videos in order, there's a central theme and there is a little bit of a method to the madness. So welcome, guys. I've got this template here. It's my presentation template. Thoughts and Words number 4. I'm going to start off not talking from the bicycle or about the bicycle. I'm going to catch us up on the news that I've been watching about COVID-19, the coronavirus. It's kind of hard to ignore this news, especially when we are all sort of self-isolating or self-quarantining, and we're in our homes so much. I've heard reports of people getting a little bit more stressed out than usual because they are locked down at home. Some cases in, like, say, Utah of domestic violence increased, right? That makes sense, right? More people at home, more things are going to happen. I'm sure you have experienced some stress, right? Connected with being locked in your room or sort of in a smaller space than you're used to, right? Hopefully no domestic violence or anything like that. But I'm sure we've all snapped a little bit. Snapped, there's a good word. Snapped. It's when you get a little bit, well, I would say a little bit, you get quite upset and you say something or you do something you didn't mean to do. Snapped. A quick reaction to something. Maybe you're just a little bit upset about something that's happened. It's a family member or someone close to you, and you just say something quickly. That is snapped. We try not to snap during these times, but it sometimes happens. We are all human. Anyhow, I wanted to update you on the latest, which I'm sure you are well aware of, but I have this little Google coronavirus map kind of in real time, and yeah, you see this graph? It seems like as far as Korea's data goes, it sort of peaked around the beginning of March, and the graph has been going down for additional cases. Every once in a while I'll get an alert on my phone these days about one new case or two new cases, and it's usually someone who is immigrating, well, just flying in from the United States or someone like that. Maybe a Korean citizen who was there for work or pleasure or for business or whatever, and they're trying to get back home. Other than that, not too many new cases here. I was in Yecheon over the weekend. I stopped there. I was riding, and I was I was either going to stay there for the night, or I was going to try to push on to Yeongju, which was about, it was only 20 kilometers further. It was at night. It was kind of cold, and I got a warning on my phone in Yecheon about 3 new cases coming up that day. And I took a look around, and Yecheon is quite a smaller town. I don't know if you guys think if I give you a little visual aid, it's a little bit better, but we'll go to maps, see if Google Map recognizes the good town of Yecheon. See if I can get down here. We got to go way down here for that. Where am I at? Yecheon, where are we at? Watch my Korean geography skills at work or not. Ah, there we are. I knew it was around. So I was basically riding from Kimcheon. Where's Kimcheon? I was riding from Kimcheon to actually right here. I was trying to go to Chunyang in Bonghua. Anyway, my choice was to sleep here or push on to here, and it was already dark. So I got the message here about 3 new cases, and my point is it's a pretty small town. If you look at it from an overhead map, yeah, you see a little bit of a structure here. You see this river kind of running through it, but it's really, when you get there, it really just looks like one main street kind of going through the town. Yeah, there are 3 or 4, but it really feels like, there's like, this is like a one McDonald's town. In fact, it doesn't even have a McDonald's. It has like one Loteria. All right, so that's my scale for you. So there are probably 3 or 4 gas stations, 2 or 3 kimbap nara or kimbap chungguks, maybe 2 peri baguettes, like that size of a town. So as I sat there at a kimbap chungguk and I saw that message, I thought, well, the chances of one of those 3 people or someone they contacted actually walking into this kimbap chungguk, small restaurant for those of you non-Koreans out there, is a lot greater than, like, say, Incheon Gwangyokshi, right? If you hear about a case in Incheon, you're pretty safe to say, I'm not going to be anywhere around that person or where they were. Anyhow, I didn't freak out or anything. I didn't panic, but I moved along to Yeongju, and I thought, well, I have some energy now. I ate my kimbap, and I went on to Yeongju and slept there. Anyhow, my whole point about this is it seems like the numbers are going down except for the occasional visitor to Korea, specifically from the United States. And when you click onto worldwide data, it's hard to ignore the numbers that the U.S. is putting up. If this were the Olympics, I would be happy, right? Wow, look at all the gold medals, or wow, the U.S. is putting up these crazy numbers. But this is for a pandemic, and so you can't help but just feel like sort of overwhelmed, sad, and you just wish something could be done about this huge number. Confirmed cases over 500,000. Recovered, right? That's always nice to hear that one. Deaths 23,000, more than any other country in the world. And so when you investigate a little bit further, you start to kind of wonder, well, why? What are the reasons the United States is getting hit so hard? Like, if you're going with logic, you're thinking, well, geographically, it's kind of far. An ocean separates it, from China. Then you include air travel, and that whole equation goes out the window. But you wonder, like, why is the United States like above and beyond any other country as far as cases, confirmed cases, and confirmed deaths? All right, so let's investigate a little bit further. And one of the first things you'll find out is New York, just New York, has been hit hard. All right, so there's another to be hit hard. In this case, affected, right? It doesn't have to be a virus or anything completely negative. It could be any sort of thing like, well, MLB was hit hard by the strike, or the airline industry was hit hard by the oil prices being increased, right? Hit hard. To be hit hard by something is to be affected greatly by it. And so the title of this is why New York has been hit so hard by coronavirus. And I kind of did a Google search because I'm guessing, like you and I, we have the same questions, like, what's up with America? Like, why are these numbers so insanely high? At the same time, you're glad that Korea's numbers and other countries around us were leveling out, right, a little bit. But you got to wonder. So a lot of people wondered, and this article is written. I will sort of summarize it and try to pull out some of the interesting points. So New York State reached a tragic milestone this week. So milestone, there's a good word. A milestone is like a marker, and it can be a good thing or a bad thing. The word itself is neutral. A milestone. I'm trying to think, like, say in my cycling, I would love to hit a milestone. I would love to ride the furthest ride I've ever done, or the most elevation gain that I've ever done, or how many hours awake can I keep riding and riding. It's kind of an endurance thing, but a runner might want to hit a milestone like the fastest mile, or you might want to hit a milestone in your life where you go for a Nobel Prize or something like this, a milestone. But in this case, we're talking about a tragic milestone or record. It now has more COVID-19 patients than any country in the world, aside from the US, which it's a part of, right? So, interesting thing here, New York has more cases than any country. That's a state that has more cases than any other country, right? We've heard of economies like New York's economy or California's economy being bigger than some other countries. Well, that's a maybe a positive thing, but this is definitely a negative thing. So the state alone, and this is a couple days old, like April 12th, so it's already, these numbers are already outdated a little bit. By the time you see it, of course, these numbers are probably increasing, which they have been. So at this time, the state's total cases, 181,026 cases. All right, so there we are. We'll put that down. Cases. These are instances where the coronavirus has been like diagnosed as someone having it, right? It's higher than Spain's 161,000, so they're comparing it to other countries. This is just New York, right? Now remember, the U.S.'s total cases, well, now over 500,000, 586,000. According to this article, New York is responsible, let's say 181, close to 200,000, almost half, right? So the disease is killing New Yorkers disproportionately. There we go. There's the word. Disproportionately. Oh, it's not even, right? It's not even. It's disproportionate. You see words you might recognize in there like portion, amount. When you go to sit down and eat something, you get a portion. And it's sort of an amount of food, right? So disproportionately, it's got a lot of stuff in the beginning, like prefixes and some suffixes on the end of this word, but proportion is amount in comparison to something else or someone else. So, like, in proportion to you, I probably drink more coffee. I drink a lot of coffee, actually. I know this because I make a pot of it in the morning, and I make a pot of it in the afternoon sometimes. And I drink a lot of coffee. I probably drink 6 or 7 cups a day. I drink more coffee in proportion to most people, but disproportionately means more than most. So actually affected worse than others, right? You would think that if we were using like New York's population or just the size of the city, you would think a little bit here, a little bit there, but disproportionately means it's affecting them not in an even way. You might have heard like for example, maybe African Americans have a disproportionate amount of heart disease in the United States, for example. Well, that would mean, if you heard that word disproportionate or disproportionately, that they get it more. And it doesn't make sense, right? They get it too much. That's what it means. So in this case, the disease is killing New Yorkers disproportionately. So why is it killing New Yorkers so much more than in California or in Incheon or in anywhere else? And of the 20,000 deaths in the United States, or 8,000, of the 20,000 deaths in the United States, right, which is now, check this out, 23, that's today, 8,000 were in New York. 42%, that's disproportionate because New York does not make up 42% of the United States. So the mortality rate is 4.7 compared with 3.4%. By the way, there's another word, mortality rate. Mortality rate is how much death, right? That's the death rate. That's a statistical word for the death rate. The mortality rate, we want this number to be low. The mortality rate, you can use this in demographics. That's, by the way, the study of human statistics. But the mortality rate means those who get the disease, 4.7% of them die in New York, right? The rest of the country, 3.4%. So if you look at these numbers, this is a lot higher than if you were to Google the mortality rate in Korea or somewhere else. So why? That's the main question. Why is New York being hit so hard? Which, in my opinion, because of New York, this graph, these numbers are way higher for the United States. So why is New York being hit disproportionately with this? Is it population size? Is it density? Remember, we talked about those last time. Population size, population density. It is the nation's most populous city. It's the most populous, right? There's another word for you. We know population, but we know populous. The most populous, having the most people, with 8 million. Where is it? All right, I lost myself. 8 million people. Twice as many as Los Angeles. It's kind of interesting. I wonder if that's just the city or if they count sort of, all 5 boroughs and sort of the places around it. And there's so many visitors in New York all the time. I would be willing to bet that if you were to expand that circle just a little bit, you'd easily hit 10 million people in New York, in or about New York. But they say 8 million, that's CNN. So New York also has 8 or 9 times more cases than any other city. So what gives? What gives? What's up? That's what that means. What gives? You might have heard this before. What's the reason? I don't know why we use the word give, right? Give, like to give someone something. It doesn't mean that in this sentence, but what gives? Like, what's the main reason for this? Just double checking. I'm still recording. Yes, I am. So that's my main question. Where we at? No other city or county has a fraction of the cases in New York City. All right. So caution on numbers. Counting cases and mortality rates is difficult because most counting is done by county or borough. By the way, that's that word, borough. And New York has 5 boroughs, right? That's areas around the city. I might even actually do this for you. If you're interested ever in traveling to New York, you might want to know about this. Borough is sort of an area around New York. And let's see if I can name the 5 boroughs. Let's do like this. We got Queens. 2, Manhattan. You got to remember those ones, right? 3, Bronx. The Bronx, that's where Yankee Stadium is. 4, Brooklyn. And 5, Staten Island. Staten Island. I'm not sure if I spelled all that right. Maybe I did. But yeah, these are the 5 boroughs of New York. Queens, that's where the New York Mets play. Manhattan, that's where Broadway everything is. Like, everything's there. Like, when you visit New York, you're probably going to Manhattan. The Bronx is where Yankee Stadium is. Brooklyn, another borough. And Staten Island is another one off to the south. So that's like the 5 main areas of New York right there. And that's why they're included in here in these statistics. So anyhow, they go through, and I'm not going to read every single part of this, but they talk about possible population density, which is high. But many cities in Asia have a density that's even higher. So that doesn't really explain too much very much. The density explanation may explain some of the difference, but not all of it. New York's densest borough is Manhattan, while relatively sprawling Queens sits at 4th out of 5. So sprawling means less dense, right? Sprawling means kind of spread out. Sprawling, spread out. So it's not everything packed up into an island like Manhattan. It's sort of more spread out. Los Angeles is much more sprawling than New York City or Chicago or even San Francisco. So what gives, right? If the density thing is not at the heart of the matter, what is it? Maybe it's because so much testing is being done in New York now, right? Here you go. If you test more, you find more. And the United States, as we saw in the last video, is kind of going gangbusters with tests, right? They're going crazy, testing. So maybe because they're testing so much, they are showing more results. Let's see here. If you go, it is likely that more tests and more tests per population are performed in New York than elsewhere in the United States, which kind of brings up the question, could it be that people who have COVID-19 and are not being tested just recover from it and they never become a statistic, like say in somewhere like Idaho or Nevada, and that the New York rate stacks up favorably to countries with aggressive testing programs, such as Iceland and South Korea. By the way, that's a good thing. Aggressive testing programs. In this sentence, aggressive doesn't mean like pushing someone out of the way or anything. It just means active and very, what can I say? Very active, doing it a lot, right? Aggressive testing programs such as Iceland and South Korea. So Korea was very good out of the gate at testing a lot of people. Germany as well. But comparative information is sketchy, right? So the split between tests performed by public versus private labs has made accurate tracking just about impossible. So some tests are being performed by public labs, some are private labs, so it's very difficult to compare these results or track the data. We might not even ever be able to really track what's going on perfectly. Anyhow, they talk about certain advice, number of cases rate to arrive in some modest amounts, mortality rate. Okay, yeah, this was another one, and it still hasn't really answered the question for us very well yet, this article. More concerning is the elevated mortality rate in New York City, right? That speaks to this number of deaths, right? 23,000 deaths in the USA right now. And according to this, how many of those were in New York? If we go back, it was right in the beginning, 8,600. That's way disproportionate, right? So if you go back there, you wonder, yeah, more concerning is the elevated mortality rate. It's elevated. It's higher. As has been well documented, some of this is due to the tragic overwhelming of the city's hospitals. This might be a little bit closer to answering our question. We'll never know just how many people died due to the country's inept preparation for the pandemic, right? Inept preparation. So we've got some people who feel the United States did not do enough out of the gate, in the beginning, at the onset of the epidemic, right? The inept preparation. Some people believe that the United States didn't have enough ventilators, right? Didn't have enough hospital beds. We're not ready for this situation. Other people feel like, well, there's no way anyone could have prepared for this. So, but the impact surely was, and still is, substantial. It has substance. It's a lot, right? The impact was substantial. So you might hear this word too, substantial. There it is, substantial. These are great words to use and add to your vocabulary. All right, so still, a mortality rate of about 6% is quite high, even though most countries, particularly in Western Europe, have seen mortality rates rise as the pandemic drags on. Let's conclude here. Sadly, the likeliest explanation for the high death rate, though, is the chronically inadequate health care given to minorities and the poor throughout New York City. So this article, in the end, sort of concludes that the health care given is inadequate. It's not enough. So there's another word. It's inadequate. This is insufficient, right? Not enough space, not enough time, not enough quality care, and that's what they blame it on. New York seems to be overwhelmed at the time. Like when your professor or a number of professors give you reports, tests, reading, videos, and you just feel it stack up, and you're like, what am I going to do? You could be overwhelmed. There's too much. So that is one thing I wanted to go over in the beginning, sort of why New York has been hit so hard. Of course, CNN is going to be probably negative toward the current administration and how things are shaping up and going down. But I like to get my news sources. I like to use here. I like to use a variety of news sources. And I try not to dwell too much on the negative, but occasionally you find yourself surrounded by it. So how do I usually deal with that? Well, I'll transition into the next part. These days, and I'll bring this up here, we have been self-isolating, right? Self-isolating, right? Staying alone on our own accord. Not because the government mandated it, but because it's the right thing to do. You might have also heard the word self-quarantining, right? You are taking yourself out of the equation. I actually have some stiffness in my neck. I also have that calf pull, if you remember, from the trail run. It's still recovering, and I would like to go to the clinic, the Chongyangwegwa, that is orthopedic clinic. Let's write that. And orthopedics deals with, bones, right? if you break your arm or if you have a pulled muscle like joints, this is what orthopedic doctors deal with, healing these things. But honestly, I'm not going there. I usually go there and get, like the electrosuction cup therapy. I sometimes take medicine. I'll get a little injection. But I'm not going there because I'm kind of self-quarantining, just in case I have it, right? Maybe I'm a carrier. I'm just operating under that assumption, and I don't want to lay down on a pillow, or even if it's been sterilized, and then sort of get an old person sick. I don't want to get an old person sick. So I have been self-quarantining either at home or in very remote areas of the country. Remote enough for me to say, yep, that's self-quarantining. Like these places. Two of the big rides I've done in the last couple weeks are these. And I'll show you here. Let me see if I can get it. 44 passes. Dongbu Sashipsa Goge. So this one I did on Saturday, April 4th. 4-4-44. And by the way, 44 passes, by the way, mountain passes, right? When somebody builds a road over the top of a mountain, they usually don't go over the summit. They go over the shortest possible point, but it's still an asphalt or concrete road, and it's called a pass because you actually pass from one side of the mountain to the other. And this one has 44 of those, which is kind of insane. Where'd I go here? It's weird. It looks like a little alien. The thing looks like an alien drawn in the middle of the country. But it starts in, where was that? Oh, let me get the map correct here. Go to the standard map. This map's, this is Garmin's OST, their map, and it's not very good. In fact, actually, it's pretty insufficient. Trying to remember this. It was Yangsuyo. Yeah, that was the name of it. It should say Yangsuyo right here, right where we started. But basically, it heads, up toward like the Gapyeong and Chuncheon area. And you get up to Chuncheon, you eat some dak galbi, and then you keep going. But if you notice all these little spikes, pass, 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 all the way until these nice big ones at the end. Oh, Solmeje, that is that's one of the hardest climbs you'll ever find in South Korea because of the grade. And by grade, I don't mean like your score in school. By grade, I mean the percent. Why? Yeah, go ahead. The percent. The steepness, right? And typically, if you're riding your bike and you start noticing it going uphill, maybe somewhere like on campus or something like that, maybe a 2%, 3% grade. When you start to go real slow and notice it, like 10% is fairly noticeable. Most ramps that go up and down, like onto highways or bike paths, they're probably 6-7%. Solmeje gets up to like 25%. It's unheard of. Like, it's unheard of, and it's sustained, right? It's sustained. Let's get on to the next thing. Got to get you a lot of words here, right? It's continued, right? It's sustained. It's held. It's not like it bumps up to 25% for a little bit and then eases off and then comes back. It's sustained, so it's really steep. Anyhow, we did this ride. I wanted to do a thoughts and words from the road on this, but I was honestly in too much pure hell. It was all day, all night. I was sleep deprived, and it got down to -6 in some of these valleys, so I was suffering. The last thing I was thinking about was pulling my smartphone out and videotaping. I could barely work my fingers to shift gears. I was kind of alternating between sticking my hand in my armpit and then switching and sticking this hand in my armpit. I was actually looking for a greenhouse with some sort of door or opening to go in and sleep or something, like with an emergency blanket. I was that close. I was about to knock on someone's door and say, "I'm so sorry, I'm a Wegugian. Can I sleep in your house? I'll give you Monlon," or so. I was desperate, but I just kept moving. And anyhow, that ride, if I had done a thoughts and words from the road, it might have been interesting, but I thought, you know what? There's just so much to go. There's so much that went down on this. that it's better to summarize it for you. So there was that ride. That's been okay. The other one that I did recently, in the midst of the self-quarantining and the self-isolation, was this one, Bektu Dagon. And Bektu Dagon is a special range or like group of mountains, right, that follows a certain path, and it goes all the way from the north of the country. I believe it even starts in North Korea, all the way down to the south of the country. So this is a burly ride too. And in this one, I started in Yeongju. It actually starts in Chunyang, and this is some big climbing here. This ride actually gained about 9,000 meters of total gain, which is higher than going from sea level to the summit of Everest. So this one, as you can see, all of these are really squiggly routes, very squiggly. Squiggly. They're not straight. Like if you ride your bike across like Oklahoma or Texas, you're probably going to see some straight lines. Not in Korea in the mountains. You see these squiggly lines, which tells you you're in the mountains. And furthermore, you'll see like some of these, like you'll go and you'll turn around and you'll come up here, you'll touch something, and you'll come back. That is actually Gochiryong. And then it goes over Maguryong. So these mountain passes are quite steep, very, very remote areas, right? You'll hear remote, like when you hear remote control, but this means out of the convenient areas, right? They're very, very far away, not easy to get to. And so these remote rides were quite challenging. This one I ended up getting rained on in the end. I thought I'd share a few photos of this one with you. It's a little bit more fresh in my mind. Basically, yeah, there's one here on Maguryong. Ryong means pass, so Magu Pass. Bektu Dagon is what it reads. And basically, as you can see, there's no one here. No one but me and my 2 water bottles and bike and some food. And this one, you have to do those stamps at the checkpoints and things like that. So yeah, oh, that's not even the right one. I'm trying to figure out how to, oh, there, scroll like this. This is the kind of roads you'll be on. Very remote, very thin. This thing right here, this little light area is like loose gravel and sand. You do not want to slip out on that when you're descending. Your front tire hits that and you slip out, next thing your chin is hitting that asphalt and you're just waking up. Done it before, not fun at all. So you got to be real careful when you're descending, right? Descending means going down. Opposite of ascending, going up. Ascending, no problem. You're going so slow, a human hiker could almost stay with you on a road like this. So beautiful though, so beautiful. You got these little, I think that's jindale, these little azaleas, these pink flowers. A-Z-A-E-L-E-A. Azalea. Let's double check my spelling on that. Azaleas. Azaleas. You got like, yeah. Azaleas, right. Azaleas. Jindale. Azalea. Did I do that right? Oh, sorry. My bad. Sounded like I was spelling it out wrong. Azalea. So you'll see that. You'll see the cherry blossoms, apple blossoms too. Nobody talks about apple blossoms, but that's a very big area for apples. Anyhow, besides the Mother Nature, you've got what some people call road porn. It's kind of a funny name for it, but it's beautifully built, sidewinding, right? Look at this. Look at these switchbacks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I love roads like that. But yeah, if you can find them, I think this one was Bobalje. Anyhow, there's so many of these. There's so many beautiful spots like this. There's some of the cherry blossoms that I saw. It's a very remote area, right? Most times you see cherry blossoms, there's couples taking pictures with selfie sticks, there's people having picnics. None of that in this area. This is way out in the boonies. The boonies. Way out in the areas that nobody else is around. The way countryside, the boonies. All right, and what else were the highlights? Approaching Danyang. This area is awesome. It's just such a nice, beautiful valley with these mountains here. The Bektu Dagon range going by you. You've got this valley with a beautiful river, and people are doing the paragliding and parasailing all around here. It looks like an awesome place. I want to take my sons there. want to do so many things in this area, but not as many people as usual. As you can see, people are self-isolating, and the only people out were like me and a couple of people on the road. And then nighttime comes, and you can see that's what it looks like at night. Switchbacks. This one's called Yomokgoge, Fox Neck Pass. And I was wondering, like, how did it get that name? Was it, were there a lot of foxes in the area? And I think instead it was just the shape of it on the map. Looks like, sort of like a fox's neck. Like, if you think about, like, Pokemon, something like Six-Tail or Nine-Tail, something like that. That's what it looked like on the map. Anyhow, also at night, you'll get up to this is Josuryong, or Josu Pass. I've got a flashlight in my face, because you're supposed to prove that you were there, so if you're just taking a selfie in the dark, it doesn't count. So I had to shine a flashlight in my face, take the selfie with the sign that I could only find there. Heba is elevation, right? 850 meters. So elevation is Heba. And 850 meters, not the warmest place to be in the middle of the night in South Korea. This one was probably like taken at like 2 a.m. or something like that. And this is the whole ride. These are the important points to me, like Control 1, Gochuryong, Control 2, Maguryong, Control 3, Bobaje. So these are big climbs, like, and they've got the meters denoted. I've got things like Danyang choices, food, water, chocolate milk, whatever. Some of these places tell me where, like, this is my last place to get food before like 100-kilometer section of real nothing. Anyhow, this is my ride sheet. I look at it. It's on my top tube when I ride like that. And finally, I think that's the last one, isn't it? It must be. Anyhow, I wanted to share that a little bit with you before showing you the final videos, and to tell you why I did this, by the way. It's part of a series of permanents. And yeah, they are the hardest permanents in Korea. They are PT-19, Baekdu-daegan 1, 12 hills, 7 passes, starts in Taebaek. PT-20 continues from Samcheok, it ends in Chunyang. PT-21, the one I just did, starts in Chunyang, ends in Kimcheon. And the last one, I still have to do this one to get my Baekdu-daegan, and that's it. It starts in Kimcheon and it ends Jirisan. Jeongnyongji. So that's coming up next, but I'm going to recover for a while first. I've done this series before. This will be my 4th time completing it, but it's just a challenge that I want to complete. It's got so many control points along the way on it. And even though I'm very reluctant to leave the house, and I question, like, why am I doing this? What am I doing this for? There's something so fulfilling about putting yourself out in the middle of nowhere, being incredibly lonely, being incredibly open to anything happening. That it's very, very adventurous, and I come back fulfilled. It gives me energy, it gives me stories, it gives me a reason to talk to you. And I'm a little bit of a head case, right? I realize I'm not playing with a full deck up here sometimes. I'm not a regular person in this way. Like, this is what I like to do. This is what I consider to be, I wouldn't say fun, but a worthwhile undertaking. So let me, without further ado, finally finish these last Cheonan 200 thoughts and words from the road. If you remember, way back when we were doing thoughts and words from the road 3, I had lost my credit card. I'd gone and recovered it, and it involved me taking a detour, right? A detour. And I'm gonna continue with the videos straight from the bike about the detour. I'm also going to turn off my speakers because I realize that can get a real metallic sound in there. So, by the way, this ride is like a children's birthday party. It's so easy compared to the Baekdu-daegan series. This ride, not even close. This ride is above and beyond anything that these videos show. So that's why I'm able to film during these rides and I don't film during these. Let me continue with the Cheonan 200 pre-ride. We'll finish these last few videos and make a few comments about that. This is called detour benefits. So sometimes when you take the road less traveled, or a road you weren't going to take originally, there are benefits. There are good points about it. Let me make sure I'm still recording. And I am. All right, guys, let's take a look.
All right, ate the goguma, got something to drink, pretty well hydrated, I'm pretty well fueled for the next leg. In the last video, I think I said shell for goguma, sweet potato. They don't have shells, they have skin, they have peels, so I'll have to fix that. Eggs have shells. Anyhow, one other good result from this detour is I'm seeing some beautiful roads that I've never been on before. Very few cars. There's one right there as I'm talking. But that's about it. This area is beautiful. It's secluded, it's quiet, and I saw a sign back there that said the mountain is called Chilgapsan. I don't think I've ever been here, so that's a treat. And I'm looking forward to going downhill now. I just got to the top. Stay hard. All right, good.
Okay, guys. So, a couple of corrections from the last video there. One of the things I mentioned, let's see if I can find this right, was I said shell for goguma or sweet potato. And it's not a shell. It's, of course, a peel, or, you know, the skin, right? And the other word I wanted to bring up was secluded. Secluded. This is a good word. Secluded. Secluded. Not seen or visited by many people. Sheltered and private. It's almost like a synonym of remote, right? Remote being not easy to get to. Secluded, not seen or visited by many people. During the COVID-19 self-isolation sort of thing going on, it's nice to go to a secluded area. And it doesn't have to be outside. It could be anywhere. Anyhow, those are two things that I mentioned in that clip. I also mentioned it being a benefit. Sometimes when you follow the same courses all the time, it's nice to take a detour, right? Even if you just walk to school and you just say, you know what? I'm going to go by that road. I'm going to go down this alley or this golmokil this time and just see what's different. All right, you saw just the beginning of Bekjebo. So take a look at this and see what you think. This is a beautiful open area.
Good news. Good news. I've just reconnected with the bike path. I'm almost back en route. I don't know if you can see the line there. I'm a little triangle and the route's purple. The next control is Bekjebo. Bekjebo, or Bekje Weir, as it's known in Korean, or in English. There are lots of bows in Korea, famous bows, Gumi bow, Yoju bow, Ippo bow, etc. Bow is basically a weir, W-E-I-R, and it's sort of a low dam, as you can see. It doesn't block the river or stream completely. It just partially controls the flow of water downstream. So it could be used to maybe help prevent flooding. It could be used for other purposes. Unlike a dam, it doesn't disrupt the wildlife quite as much. It doesn't generate hydroelectric power, or at least they don't have to. And the water is not diverted for agricultural purposes. So this particular weir, Bekjebo, is sort of the pride of the weirs in Korea. It's known by engineers in Korea as one of the finest designs of a weir in the nation. So I'll get closer to it and give you a look at it, and we'll get my stamp. The other news is this control on the regular line should have been 77 kilometers into the ride, and here it's going to be about 85. So 7, 8, 9, 10. I guess I'm about 8 kilometers added on. I've added on about 8 kilometers with the detour to pick up my credit card. So take care, and I will show you how to stamp a brevet card when we get there.
This was just a little bit of footage going close to the weir, actually over the weir. I thought I'd include it. You can see what these things are. They actually lift, right?
So here we are. We've found the red stamp booth.
Okay, just a couple of things to mention from that last little section of video. Just gonna make sure I'm still recording here. Kind of have this like fear that it's gonna stop or something. Yeah, weir. That was something, I explained it in the video. Hopefully you were able to hear it, like this low dam, so I won't repeat myself on that. I did also mention reconnect. So yeah, why don't I just write these things down? Reconnect. I reconnected with the route. I took a detour and then I came back to my course, reconnected. You don't always use that for roads. You can say I reconnected with an old friend, or I reconnected with a family member. Anytime that maybe you've gone away from someone or something and you come back to it, you can reconnect. Weir, right? A word you don't hear very often, but yeah, that's weir, this low dam. And then I also want to say, unlike A, B, and then plus info. Right, so unlike dams, weirs are not used for generating electricity. Unlike baseball, basketball is played indoors. So you can use this phrase, unlike A, and then whatever B is you're talking about, add information that A isn't or doesn't do. You know what I mean? So like, unlike coronavirus, cancer is not infectious. That makes sense, right? Two things that are sort of the same group, you can use that phrase to explain them. Unlike, I'm trying to think of a good example. Unlike coffee, tea doesn't stain your teeth. That's a lie, they both stain your teeth. That's a terrible example, but you know what I'm saying. All right, moving on, so you can see the stamp booth. I always talk about having these checkpoints along the rides, and this is one of the ways. In addition to the selfie that you saw at nighttime, this is another way to prove you were at a place, because this stamp booth only exists at Beckjay Weir, and there's no other way to get this stamp unless you steal it or somehow manufacture one yourself. But then why even join the biking community, right? Just be a criminal instead. You can make money instead. Anyhow, here you go.
So here we are. We've found the red stamp booth, and it's Beckjay Bo Injung Center. So this one is a self-stamp. We're not using a convenience store this time, and what you do is you just stamp it, just like this. You find the Beckjay Bo spot, stamp it, just like that. Note the time, it is 2:16, so you write that down, and you're good to go. That's a self-stamp. Yeah, this was normally actually 73K, so not 77. That means I've added 10. Anywho, that's it, Beckjay Bo. And since we're a little bit behind schedule, I guess we need to proceed down the line and update you when we get back to the next spot.
Okay, guys. And judging from the time, I think this is a good chance to conclude, because the remaining videos sort of start a new theme in the ride, and I can do those later with you. But basically, we've talked about the detour, right, today in those last two rides. And when you take a detour, I'm already repeating myself, it's up here. When you take a detour, it's not your regular path, it's another way, and it's usually there because of some reason, like there's construction or there's a problem with the main road or route, and you have to go a different way and then rejoin or reconnect to it. Also, we talked about, unlike A, B, we talked about many different words. In the meantime, I will make this PPT available if you guys are interested. Thoughts and Words 4. A couple of students do hit me up or message me for these because they can't see them in the video very well. But yeah, hit me up. Send me a message. And feel free to do it yourself. I hope you guys are enjoying these. I'm getting enough positive feedback on the thoughts and words lessons that it really makes me happy, guys. It really fulfills me, and it makes me feel like I'm doing something that's coming from real life, and it's giving you a chance to learn new words, and maybe words that are things you wouldn't mention every day, but they're things that you can add to your active vocabulary. And I hope you guys are enjoying them. I also hope you're staying healthy and happy in this time of self-isolation and self-quarantine. And I look forward to seeing you again, if everything goes as planned, on May 11th, right? That's when we're supposed to meet. If everything continues as it has been going, though, we may be doing the entire semester online. So, anyhow, I'm operating under the assumption that we're meeting again on the week of May 11th. Stay hard, guys. Stay with it. It was great to talk to you again, and I hope you enjoy this lesson. All the best. Peace out.